Uh, uh, we decided that we'd complete this webinar this morning. We had a couple of interesting things that have occurred. And just before I continue with that, we are recording this, and there's obviously a large number of people who've actually requested this recording later on. But the reason that I think it's very important for us to talk about this employer accreditation and what's happening moving into the future is because of an event that happened over the last couple of weeks. We had a company that was that we're accredited, and they'd employed a salesperson in this particular company. And what happened is they wanted to promote that salesperson into a sales management role. What actually happened, unfortunately, was that the company let their accreditation lapse, and what ended up happening is they were unable to promote their salesperson into the new role. There are other scenarios as well, as our candidates start to reach that 3-year period. What's going to happen is that they're going to want to extend their visas through to the 5-year visa, and if the employer's not accredited, they're not going to be able to do that, nor are they going to be able to apply for residency. If you don't keep your accreditation live, it's going to impact probably just about every employee that you've got on a accredited employer work visa. I'd just like to introduce myself and Vanessa. I'm Russell Phillips, the Director of Automotive Employment New Zealand, and Vanessa Godbaz is our Licensed Immigration Advisor. So I'm just going to hand you over to Vanessa. Vanessa, perhaps you'd like to take it from here.
Thanks, Russ. Okay, we'll just jump straight in as people are busy. So let's just talk about the importance of becoming accredited. For anyone watching this recording that isn't yet, you must be accredited to employ migrants. Most people know that, but some may not. There's no other way around it. It's a fairly simple process to start with if you're financially viable, and there's some ways there that you can prove that. You don't need to prove all of those, just one of those, and that will get you started. And basically, if I'm doing your accreditation, it's a very quick questionnaire that you complete for me, and I then go and do that on your behalf and apply for you. All right. More important is, once you're accredited, is to maintain your accreditation. Now, the first accreditation period is 1 year only, and at the moment, following on from that, when you reapply, you get 2 years. There was a situation with the current employers where INZ wasn't ready for renewals, so they automatically gave everybody a further year. That grace time is up now.
Yeah. If I could just jump in here for 2 seconds as well, Vanessa. During this webinar, we're going to be talking about some really neat things that are happening in immigration as well. We know it's been pretty difficult in that space to get people through, and we've had to, do a lot of jumping through hoops, but it's about to get easier, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit further. One of the things I'd also like to highlight is that Vanessa can guide you through this process. It's actually not hard. It appears to be harder than what it is, but that's exactly why you do involve a licensed immigration advisor in the first place. Like any professional, the licensed immigration advisor guides you through the process. If you were, dealing with a legal situation, you'd get legal representation, and the same thing goes when it comes to immigration. It does pay to work with an advisor. Our costs are negligible in comparison to the value of the service that moves forward, but I'm sure that a lot of you will already know that because you're already dealing with us. Sorry to interject. I'll leave you to carry on.
Thanks for the plug, Russell. Okay, so for maintaining your accreditation, these are the things that you said you would do when you first became accredited. So employer modules. So anyone making a recruitment decision has to go to the employment website and do the 8 modules. They're pretty basic, but the website itself is a bit of a nightmare in terms of you've got to allow pop-ups and things like that. So it's just a multi-choice question. After you've read a blurb, you get the answer wrong, you just go back and re-answer it till you get it right. Tick, got your certificate. So keep those certificates, make sure that you've got them somewhere safe in case INZ says, prove that you've done those employer modules. Your
Yeah.
migrant employees also have to do their modules as well, which is separate 8 ones, and you must give them paid work time to do that. You can't just say, go do this at home. Okay, so we need evidence of that as well. You don't necessarily need evidence of the actual modules, but I would recommend you keep them anyway, just in case you get questioned. And yes, we had a news release yesterday from INZ, and basically they said, okay, freeing up the process a little bit, you don't need to supply that evidence anymore when you come to renew your accreditation.
So I hear a vicious rumour that you had something to do with that, Vanessa, and do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
No, I can't take credit for that. I have been involved in a very ongoing saga with INZ about supplying evidence of these modules, and I've said, look, you've already said we don't have to. Why are you now looking to decline accreditation because we haven't sent them to you? So it's just ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that did have something to do with it, but
I think the very fact that it came out, I think the very fact that it came out within hours of you talking to the Immigration New Zealand executive, I think that probably is a pretty good indication that you had something to do with that. One of the things that I think is really important is that let's not forget that when we're dealing with Immigration New Zealand case officers, that they don't necessarily all have the same level of expertise and experience. You know, a new person comes into a role, and obviously they try and work through with what they know, but the immigration process in its entirety, if you look at all the operation manuals, is really, really complex. So don't be surprised if someone turns around to you and says, look, even though you don't have to provide that evidence anymore, don't be surprised if someone asks it for you. And the trouble is that the moment you start getting into a tangle with an immigration case officer, everything's going to slow down. So just make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's on the way through. There are no shortcuts. You just want to make sure that everything's in the back. Having said that, thanks to Vanessa, you no longer need to provide that evidence, even though you may be asked for it.
Okay, so settlement information, that is all about things about how they settle into New Zealand, and including health and safety and any further training that may be available to them. You need to give that to them within 1 month of them starting. Now, we have our own settlement pack that we produced, and we keep that up to date. That's on a nationwide level. The links to the information that you have to give. You also need to do your own local information on top of that. So you can certainly have our settlement pack, and but also Immigration New Zealand have their own template, which is a Word document, which has all the links and gives you space to put your local information in as well. And I can tell you where to find that. The other thing you need to do now, with the new accreditation rules, you must advise Immigration New Zealand if an employee leaves the business. And once again, just please ask me where to send that to, who to contact, because it seems to be changing quite a bit at the moment. So I will have the most up-to-date information of who you do that to. You also need to ensure that applicants are suitably qualified for the role. Now, those of you who got accredited from the beginning, remember that you didn't actually have to follow ENSCO back then. You could just say what you thought. That has not done very well, because now people are looking at residency, and they don't actually meet the necessary requirements according to their qualification or lack of.
Vanessa, just for those people that don't understand what ENSCO is, perhaps you'd just like to explain that?
Oh, yeah. It's the Australia-New Zealand categorisation of all the roles that are supposed to be existing. And it's very out of date, and they are updating it at the moment to make it a little bit more relevant to today's society and the jobs that we now have. Okay, so we now run off ENSCO again like we did years ago. and you need to make sure that your applicant meets the ANSCO code. And a really simple way to do this, if you want to find out which code they need to be, go to ChatGPT and just put in what is the ANSCO requirement for a mechanic, and it'll come up with the whole thing. So you can also get job descriptions using ChatGPT as well. It's brilliant.
And that can be done for any category, right? For those Job Corp,
yep.
For those Job Corp clients out there that are outside the motor industry, that doesn't matter whether it's a midwife or an educator. And in the automotive side with automotive employment, you could use ChatGPT exactly the same way. The other thing you could do, I take it you can still go into the Immigration New Zealand website and manually go through the codes.
Yes, you can. It's really easy to. At the moment, it's quite difficult to find the right one sometimes. And so if you're not used to using it, or you've got a role that's a little bit different, I would try using ChatGPT. And because I did it this morning actually as a test, and it worked brilliantly for a vehicle sales manager.
Yeah, you also mentioned the other day that when you're with job descriptions, how does that? That's obviously you can get that ANSCO code by asking ChatGPT, but you also mentioned quite a novel thing about job descriptions. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Quite sure which one you mean. Yeah.
So it can be done the other way, right?
Yes.
So you can put an ANSCO code in there and ask ChatGPT to complete a job description based on the ANSCO code. Is that the case?
So then you know when that applicant goes to apply for residency that they can actually that they meet the requirements for that. Tells you what skill level it is and everything. Brilliant. All right. Kind of digressed it there, but it's just something quite cool. This is the kind of settlement information that you need. I'm not going to go into it. I think the people that are here now already know this. But if you're new to it and you're watching the recording, please come to me and we'll help you through this as well.
I think again, it's really a case of picking up the phone. If you're a client of Automotive Employment New Zealand or Job Corp, the reality is that you know that you've got an open line to us, and you can just simply say, look, we need a little bit of guidance on this, what's required, and we're happy to guide you through that process. It's not that hard, is it?
No, that's right. Right, let's quickly move forward, Ruth. Accreditation renewal. Now, this is where a few people have fallen down a hole because you need a lot more documentation. If you haven't done those things that you said you were going to, then it's tricky. If you have, and you can just tick yes to all the questions, it's automated. It happens in a few hours. Boom, there's your new accreditation certificate. Please do not be tempted to tick the question yes if you haven't actually done it. Okay, there will be spot checks being done, I'm sure. And if you get caught out having told porkies, then it's not going to go very well for you at all. You could lose your accreditation. So please don't be tempted to do that.
I think that when we talk about some of the good things that are happening in 2025, with the new system, best practice and trying to keep things as clean as possible. I think we're going to be able to demonstrate quite clearly how important that is going to be moving forward.
Going forward, yeah. So you probably will need to provide your financials, and that was the list that I did earlier. 24 months of financial papers, or 6 months of not making a loss, that kind of thing. If your accreditation has not expired yet, get the staff who make the recruitment decisions to complete those modules now, because you will have done it within your accreditation period, so you will be able to tick that box. It's unlikely for employees that you'll be able to do the same because they had to have had that done within 1 month. Get them to do it now. Keep the certificates. And then very importantly, you have to explain kind of why it wasn't done in the first place and what you will do to fix it in the future. And for that, I recommend you, if you have an induction checklist now, make sure that you add in those activities for migrant employees. That will be their employee modules and their settlement information given within 1 month of the start date. Provide that with a letter to INZ to say, look, this is what we're doing moving forward. We've changed our processes to make sure that we don't forget to do these things. Don't just do the letter, you need to have something else to back it up. Let's talk about the future of accreditation, because this could be quite cool for some of you, all right? So this is the way that they're coming across to try and streamline the process. And that is to have like a 4-tier system with some high trust employers at the top who may not even need to do job checks anymore. So you really want to try and be tier 1 if you can. There's 3 other tiers you can fall into, and you can go up and down those tiers apparently. Now this is not set in stone at the moment, but we were given an indication of what those tiers would look like. And my assumption is, like all consultation papers, they're pretty much going to do it anyway. There may be some tweaks.
Yeah, I think that was pretty self-evident in terms of how that consultation went. And I think as we move on to this next slide, that I was actually fortunate enough to be involved in the recruitment and consulting services consultation with MBIE over the future of accreditation. And it seemed to me that pretty much it's a tick box exercise going through the consultation with maybe a few minor critiques. Yeah.
So let's have a look at what those tiers might look like, and I hope you can read that. It's a little bit blurry. So tier 1 will be pretty much all your government departments, but also some higher level large employers who meet certain criteria, and I'll talk about those criteria next, what they might look like. So you may not need a job check for your higher skilled roles, so that'll be levels 1 to 2, possibly 3. So it might include your trades people, might just be management. I don't know what that looks like yet. You maybe get a longer reaccreditation period, and I think that one is pretty much going to go like that. 5 years would be nice. So you only have to go through this process once every 5 years, and prioritise allocations of job checks if you don't meet that one, not to do the job check. Tier 2, we're talking about third parties here. They're talking about bringing in third parties to verify that employer. And I'll cover that off again in another slide, but we don't know what those parties are yet exactly. But basically what that's doing is taking the onus off Immigration New Zealand to basically verify that employer is credible. And then some of the employers who meet some of the criteria for tier 1, but not all of them. So what might you get? You might get a longer reaccreditation period as well, and you might get prioritised allocation for job checks. You'll jump to the head of the queue, as it were. That would be nice. Tier 3 standard employers, not covered by the others, and that might just be a longer accreditation period, but you wouldn't necessarily get prioritised allocation for job checks. Yeah. And then we come to tier 4, which is the labour hire employers. And Russell, this is one dear to your heart, so I'll let you discuss that one.
Yeah, look, we all know that there's been a lot of publicity, media publicity, in particular the New Zealand Herald and TV, talking about some labour hire employers that have exploited offshore workers. I mean, one particular company made 1,000 people redundant last year in 2023, literally just before Christmas. And I'm sure most of us would have read that and we would have probably felt appalled. Well, I did. You know, if you're a labour hire company in that category, the reality is they're going to make it way harder, and that's to stop companies, you know, bringing in thousands and thousands of people from foreign countries. And in the particular case that I'm referring to, they had 1,000 workers from the Philippines, and they're all made redundant before Christmas. Realistically, you know, contracts complete and they're not able to keep them on permanently. They want to stop that practice, and they so you know there's quite a high level of requirement for the labour hire employers. What they're trying to do here And if you look at the higher risk employers there, you don't want to be one of those higher risk employers. You know, if you're that company that's constantly in the public eye for uh, employing for personal grievances, the reality is you're going to be seen as a higher risk employer. The same too if you're constantly having post decision checks uh, uh, that aren't stacking up. So you say that you're doing this, you say that you're paying your employer this way, but you're not. Okay, I think that if you get found out in situations like this, you could end up being a high risk employer. The overall picture, if you just look at it, what they're trying to do is create a best practice situation. So if you keep it, as I said before, if you keep everything tidy, you'll end up moving up through the allocation system from tier 4 through to tier 1. Now, the more employers that we can get that go through the process quickly, and they have no requirement for a job check. Obviously, if that's 10% of the market, just for argument's sake, then they've got 10% less job checks to do. If tier 2, makes up 30 or 40% of the marketplace, in combination of tier 1, then you can see how those job checks are going to become way faster. But it's also predicated on the fact that you've got to be in that high trust model. So that's where it's heading, and I see it as being a really good thing. I think that we're going to see job checks and accredited employer checks moving forward, getting approved way faster. And certainly when I was involved in that consultation, that is the intention. I can confirm that was the intention that MBIE was talking about when we're in that consultation. And that's going to be really important. Every single period that I've been involved in recruitment, when you come out of the other side of these downturns, the shortages start to ramp up, and that's probably not far away now. And so we probably will need these skilled migrants moving forward.
Russ, did I mention the employment agreements before in job checks?
No, I don't think you did. No,
I don't think I did. I think I did that when I was practicing. Okay, so there's another good thing, a way to improve the job check time, and this was also released yesterday, is that they're going to not look at those employment agreements at job check stage. And any of you who've had the letter from INZ that says you have not put in the sexual grievance clause in your employment agreement, blah, 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 blah. You know exactly what I mean. I got a 3-page letter from some guy specifically saying that, and all he needed to do was pick up the phone and call me and say, can you please add that into the employment agreement? And it would have been done within 5 minutes. So, that a lot of these employees are just making it so complicated that it doesn't need to be. And Erica Stanford herself actually said in the recent NZAMI conference, I've been trying to tell people, just pick up the phone. How can it be? So let's hope she is trying to inject some common sense into everything, but she's also dealing with years of ingrained systems and the ways that they've done it in the past. So.
Yeah. I mean, in this particular case, what they were doing is that those employment agreements were, being, micro. Had a real micro focus, both at the job check stage and at the accredited employer work visa stage. So they were actually going through the process twice. So now we only have to go through it once, and that's when we're processing the accredited employer work visa.
So I was overjoyed to hear that one, to be honest with you, because that's just been the bane of our lives for a little while now. Okay, moving right along. What do these criteria look like for tier 1? What would they look like? So the length of time you've been accredited. If you're employing level 4 and 5 employees, a certification from MSD that you've been going through their system, checking that there's no Kiwis available who are unemployed.
And if I could just interject on that issue of Kiwis, okay? Um, uh, it's important. A lot of you will have a number of skilled migrants in your organisations. Don't forget that once they've got residency, they're deemed as a Kiwi, right? So, that term Kiwi doesn't mean to say that just because you employ 24 South Africans that once they've got residencies, they're still seen as South Africans. They're seen as Kiwis at that point.
Yeah, I probably should have been a little bit more obvious on that one, but there we go. Thank you for that, Russ. So they might want to look at the evidence of the training that you're doing to make sure that you're upskilling your employees. And I think I don't know of a single employer that I work with that does not have a training program, brand training, diagnostics training, you name it. I mean, some of you are sending them overseas to get stuff done. So, just providing that information up front may help you get up the tiers, and also talking about having a specified proportion of domestic workers. As Russell points out, domestic workers may be your migrants who now have residency, and that's all starting to happen now. They're becoming eligible for that as we speak. And also your business has been in operation for a certain number of years. So you're not likely to be tier 1 if you're just brand new off the block.
Yeah. And that specified proportion of domestic workers, those are New Zealanders versus migrants, same scenario. As soon as they become a resident, they're considered a New Zealander. Yeah.
And we just a very brief discussion on third parties, because they really haven't extrapolated on that at all. But they've said maybe something like chartered accountants that certify the financial stability of the company. So that might be one way of having a third party certification. And the other one that they brought up, not me, but I heartily agree with it. Priority processing for anyone. Let's say it's a job check application that you've done, but you get an LIA to just double check that for you and tick that off for you and say that's decision ready. That should go to the front of the queue as well. So that's a suggestion that they came up with. That might be another third party to help you through it.
Yeah. During the RCSA consultations, they also referred to potential industry bodies, and but that was more of a discussion. So I think this particular part, we're not quite sure how that third party situation is going to work as yet. Just keep in mind that the absolute main focus is on trying to create a best practice model that encourages employers to run clean operations in regard to immigration, and that's a good thing for all of us, right? Yeah. Now, Vanessa, I think we've pretty much covered most of those areas, have we?
Yep.
Look, if anyone's got any questions here, please feel free to put them into the chat. You can also just simply email Vanessa at jobcorp.co.nz or Russell at jobcorp.co.nz, and we're more than happy to just answer the questions that you've got. If you'd like us to help give you a quick consultation on what to do with your accreditation, or we'd just like a bit of a chat, we're more than happy to do that. The majority of your all clients of either Job Corp or Automotive Employment, so we're more than happy to support those questions and consultations, or guide you through the accreditation process as needed. So look, thank you all very, very much for attending the webinar, and we will make a copy of the recording available for those of you that want it. Clearly there's a number that are going to be distributed anyway. I think that probably as many as 30 or 50 are going to be going out to different clients so that they get the documents, and we can also make available a copy of the actual presentation itself if you want it. Just ask. We'll probably put this on LinkedIn as well, so that if you're connected with us on LinkedIn, it'll be great. So thank you very much for attending the webinar, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.